Welcome to VeloPro. My name is Bob, and I'd like to elaborate on what is a gravel bike, because it is a bike with large tires. But I'm going to tell you now a couple things that are very important to know before you select a purchase, and leave an excellent link. But maybe the link is his opinion, this is my opinion, and your opinion is the one that matters. So try to combine them. But this is something to consider. The top tube on a gravel bike will be higher than a typical cyclocross bike as you go to larger and larger tires. So when you buy your bike initially, it might come with 32 tires or something like that, 38, 30, something in that range. And this might feel really comfortable, but if you go to 46s, it may not. So consider that. Then the second thing is drop. Drop is very important for ground clearance over obstacles, and we talk about that a lot in cyclocross. Cyclocross bikes like a nice high bottom bracket for doing bunny hops over obstacles. Very useful. But they also like shorter seat stays and chain stays because they like a tighter frame that's more responsive. But in our case, we want the longest chainstay we can find, because that'll help our wheelbase. Now, I'm not going to talk about forks because they are interchangeable, and you may not like the fork that comes with your bike and change it later, or vice versa. But in other words, you may find that your fork is really just perfect and do nothing. And that's what I did here. This is the one that came with the frame set. It is a carbon fork, but we won't discuss it. What we will discuss are my incredibly long chainstays. Because had I known about these chainstays, I think I would have avoided a situation long ago. Because the wheel is so far back. When you put my road bike next to this, it really is a different animal. The top tube, for me, I like a little high because when I'm going fast down hills, and there are some pretty good hills, and around 50, 60 kilometers an hour, I like to grab this with my knees, even slower. You know what I mean? It gives you that extra stability sometimes, or at least be able to, use it for speed. So that's me, but that may not be you. The other thing is, I like the idea of a shorter head tube, because there could be, I wouldn't, but you might want to slam your stem and do some cyclocross. And if you have like some of the new Specializes, and they're in the article, he discusses them very specifically, you might find that head tube just awkward. And there's bikes like the Decathlon that are really nice, and they also come with those monster head tubes. But if you're only doing touring, that could be okay, because there's a mechanical advantage in having the bearings spaced. So that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, I want to wrap up the show because I have only these three things that are so critical: top tube, chainstay, and drop. Those things will differentiate bikes, and of course, a gravel bike will have much more generous clearance here, and in your forks. But so many cyclocross bikes have big, juicy fork clearance, but when you come back to the frame, there's nothing. There is one thing we can touch on very fast. If you do have a cyclocross bike and you do find the frame too big, or you might want to make it lighter, or you consider 650s. There's something about 650. They're neat, this article touches a little bit about the smaller diameter, and you save aerodynamics, weight, and the tires are available. So those are all good things. And if with the new bikes typically come with the disc brakes. This bike is 7 years old. It has rim brakes, but I like them. And my next bike will have discs, but just because it comes that way. One other little tidbit. If you're a beginner or even a moderately good rider, you may find this type of pedal, a clipless pedal, really awkward. If you find it unsafe, you're not going to want to ride your bike, and if you do, especially in stop and go, you may not be as safe. There's nothing wrong with a traditional pedal, but I recommend something for your foot. Okay, having nothing is kind of bad. You want to keep your foot in a consistent place so that your strokes are in the right place, and that gets into a whole other things. But you want your foot more or less consistently placed all the time, and this type of shoe will give you an opportunity to use a real bicycle shoe, but without the cleat. Okay, because they also have, before you put the cleat on the bottom, you have the option to remove that chunk and put the metal in, or leave it rubber. So take a look at shoes, real riding shoes, because sneakers don't cut it. Anyway, those are the key elements. I thank you so very much for watching, and I thank new subscribers. Check the link. It's a really good article, but I didn't want to get into it all. Bye.